Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Well, we're finally in April, which means we are a month closer to better weather and hopefully a little bit more volume thanks to that produce season. Hopefully the rain is behind us in California. As always, once a month I do these performance videos where I share our numbers with you guys so you can see how much you could make if you were in the trucking industry driving for yourself. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I teach about the trucking industry with a heavy focus on the spot market as well as freight market analysis. So if this is a topic that interests you, feel free to subscribe down below. Anyway, guys, let's dive right into it and take a look at what our performance looked like for March. Ready? Let's go. Okay, guys, as always, a reminder, I am not including any payroll data in these numbers because I want to show you how much you can make if you're driving for yourself and you have your own authority. So we have one of our dry vans compared to one of our reefers. So in terms of gross income, the dry van did better than the reefer this month. Reefers, it was really difficult. There were a few weeks that were really bad. But yeah, the dry van did a little bit better than the reefer in terms of gross income. These are the deadhead miles. They're pretty comparable. We tried to minimize deadhead as much as possible. The loaded miles are pretty comparable as well, pretty great. So are the total miles. And here we have the average loaded rate per mile. So you can see for the dry van, the loaded rate per mile average was $2.25. For the reefer, $2.19. And the total rate per mile on average was $2.11 for the dry van and $2.06 for the reefer. Is it good? Absolutely not. Is it better than what the market has to offer? Heck yeah, because what I saw this month was 80 cents per mile loads for the dry van, and there were a lot of them. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the expenses now. So the first thing we have is equipment payments. This is the rental for the dry van. We were renting this dry van. We just switched to a flatbed, and this is financing for the reefer. Yikes. Then we have the fuel expenses. Now fuel, something I want to let you know. Because we use the RTS card, we pay every single Friday for the fuel expenses that we accrue during the week. So some of these fuel expenses are actually from the last week of February as well. That's why it looks so high. So it's not quite accurate, but I'm just including it in the month of March anyway. Then we have insurance. It's the same for both trucks. Both of these trucks are under the original company. We have maintenance expenses, which were either non-existent or ridiculously low this month, which was wonderful, but you'll see why it's important later on. No filings, no taxes, consumables are different tools, etc., tolls as well. Washes, we had some washes for the reefer. Scales for the dry van, my business partner pays for the scales with our company card. For the reefer, this is one of our team members who's operating it. So this goes under the fuel card expense, right? The RTS card, it is used to pay for those scales. So this is something to consider. Then we have the electronic logging device per truck, and then we have the load board expense. So let me write this down. We have dry van, we have reefer. So we have the total expenses here. For the reefer, they were a bit higher because of equipment. So here are our net incomes. The dry van made $13,000 almost in net income. The reefer made almost $11,000 in net income. Now, if you remember watching my last video, I believe, I said that the results of this month were horrid. And the reason I say this is because honestly, this is not realistic. I mean, it's not a bad net income, don't get me wrong. But the maintenance expenses are not realistic. The maintenance expenses are usually much higher. So yeah, but the net income was, I suppose it was okay if you are driving for yourself. So one of the most common questions I get via email is whether it's a good idea to get into this industry right now and then proceed to delegate, meaning hire drivers, hire a dispatching service, someone to do the back office. So what I have done is I have taken our numbers from this month and added some driver salaries. Now this is just the salary. It does not include things like payroll tax or workman's compensation because all of those things, they will vary by state. So let's take a look at how the net income changes when you add those driver salaries there. And just a reminder again, the net income is going to be higher than it actually is supposed to be because it doesn't take into consideration that payroll tax as well as the workman's compensation insurance, unless of course you're hiring independent contractors. Okay, let's look at how the net income will change as you add those team members to your team, starting with a 60 cent per mile driver. As a reminder, again, this is just the salary. It does not include payroll taxes, workman's compensation, none of that. So these are our numbers, the ones that I just showed you a few minutes ago, but I just added this salary. So for the dry van, the net income is all of a sudden $5,721. For the reefer, $3,731. All right, let's take a look at a 65 cent per mile driver. And again, just the salary, no payroll taxes. Here is the net income. You can see it's going down. A 70 mile per hour driver. Here we have the expense. And all I did was I took the 70 cents multiplied by the total miles right here. This is all I did. So look at that net income. Yeah, this is what happens when you bring on team members, and this is absolutely normal. You're paying someone to drive the truck, right? This is an employee or an independent contractor, whatnot. But of course, the net income is going to be less. Now, what I also did was I added a dispatch expense. So let's take a look. So I used the original net income. This is for the dry van. This is how much you will make if, according to our numbers, if you are driving yourself and dispatching yourself. $12,984 on the dry van, right? This is what my business partner made. Now, this is how the net income changes if you dispatch yourself but hire a driver, right? Now, let's take a look what happens if you do a dispatcher who you pay 10% of gross income and you hire a 70 cent per mile driver. This is your net income, according to our numbers. You can see, I'm going to leave this up for just a second so you can pause it, take a look, screenshot it if you need to, but you can see how the more you delegate, I mean, it's basic math. The more you delegate, the more expenses you have, the less your net income. So let's take a look at the reefer numbers. We'll use the reefer numbers. If you're dispatching yourself and driving yourself and using our numbers, you're making almost $11,000 in net income in a month. If you are hiring, let's say, a 70 cent per mile driver and paying a dispatcher 10% of gross, this is your income, right? $28. Now, there was no maintenance this month for the reefer, as you saw. I'm going to show you guys again. There was absolutely no maintenance this month on the reefer. Here is our maintenance expense on the reefer. So you are just one maintenance cost away from losing money. You are already losing money because, as I said, the driver's salary does not include the payroll expenses, right? Like the payroll taxes and the workman's compensation. It's not included there. So you're already losing money according to our numbers. Of course, if you're booking better loads than we do, which is absolutely possible, I'm a mess half of the time. So if you're booking amazing loads, you can still make it work. But the more you start delegating, the less money you start making. This is just the reality. So to answer the question of whether it's a good idea to get into the trucking industry with the hope of making it a passive income, well, I showed you the numbers. This is just the reality of the market. It might have been possible when the market was booming, but I don't think I would recommend doing that then either. In this market, the best course of action is, if you have your own authority, try to see if you can run the show fully by yourself. It is uncomfortable, it's time consuming, and it's sometimes extremely overwhelming to do everything by yourself and wear many hats, but it's also the best chance you will have in terms of trying to succeed in the current market. In terms of my experience with March, I'm not gonna lie, this has been probably the worst month when it comes to booking loads, with the exception of April 2020 when everything shut down. Some of my guys were sitting for days without a load. Some of them were forced to go to crap areas because there was no other choice. Something I have never really mentioned in my previous videos is that one of my favorite aspects about my job was the load booking process. Now, if you have followed me for a while, you know that I own 2 trucking companies. So everything, back office, compliance, safety, all of those things, this is kind of my forte. I also happen to dispatch my own fleet of trucks. And load booking was the best thing ever. I loved the feeling of negotiating, the feeling of winning, and also the feeling of what I thought was relationship building with brokers. This month, negotiation was pretty much impossible because brokers have a ton of carriers to choose from, and most of those carriers will take whatever is offered on the board. The feeling of winning, of course, it goes without saying, it happens rarely nowadays. And relationship building, well, if you watched my broker video last month, somewhere like 2 weeks ago, then you know that relationship building is pretty much impossible in the current market. Nevertheless, I am hopeful, like I usually am, and I am just hoping that this month, the month of April, is not worse than March. Baby steps, right? I'm going to be happy if the month of April is not worse than March. Anyway, guys, I hope that I gave you some insight into how much you can actually make in this industry right now. I wish you continued strength, persistence, and patience. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you guys in the next video.